get started. Firstly, welcome everybody to this Moving to Portugal pre-Brexit seminar. Melanie, who's on our team, she will mute everyone now just in case there's any background noise, but there will be an opportunity for a Q&A at the end. So please feel free to jot down any questions or even pop them in the chat, and then we will deal with those questions at the end of the presentation. I'd also like to thank Enrique Freitas from Millennium BCP, who's kindly agreed to do a short presentation around banking and what can be done in the UK prior to a move, and clearly also in country once people are in Portugal. I'm sure he's happy to talk about that as well. And he's one of those partners with whom we work that I think can provide a service that is practical for people who are still considering the move. So what I'm going to do now in terms of housekeeping, it's the mute button, it's the chat. If anyone has any issue or can't hear me, or for whatever reason can't see me, then just feel free to interrupt. Or if there's a very, very urgent sort of question, feel free to use one of these react symbols, with their various expressions to sort of visually interrupt the presentation, and we will certainly interrupt to see how we can help. So I'm going to share my screen now with you. I'm not sure exactly if you'll continue to see me or my screen, but I'm less important. The screen's what matters. So I'm going to do that, and I am going to just maximize this. Can you all,
good.
Is that good? Look
Yep.
good?
Yep.
Okay, excellent, fantastic. So I'm just going to push this off into the, yeah, there we go. Right, so welcome one and all to the Moving to Portugal pre-Brexit. I should say pre the end of the transition period, because as we know, Brexit, or the exit of the UK from the European Union, has actually occurred. It occurred at the beginning of this year, broadly speaking, then in January. And we are now in what we call this transition period, where the rules remain effectively the same as they were prior, or when the UK was still part of the EU. And as we all know, the discussions and negotiations are ongoing as regards the whether there will be formally an agreement between the UK and the EU once the end of the transition period arises, or when it comes to an end. And so therefore, around this uncertainty, there are a number of questions that need to be asked, and this and many other presentations that arise like it are due to the fact that people have understood that under the rules of free movement, it is going to be somewhat easier to take up residency in Portugal, a country like Portugal. It would, the same or similar rule would apply to any other country in the EU before the end of the transition period. The practical limitation that we have, of course, is that we are in very unusual times with limited ability to travel, and therefore this creates a few challenges in terms of dealing with this. And hopefully we're going to talk for around 40 minutes around some pragmatic steps that can be taken in terms of dealing with this process. Now, I'm just wondering why. Here we go. Right. So some key considerations for everyone. Firstly, the timing. This is the key question on everyone's mind, and that is, how can residence be established in the limited time remaining? So the key thing is to understand the steps that are compulsory in order to prove residency within or before the 31st of December. It's also very important, and we make this point consistently to people, to understand what your final plan is. Is it to rent ongoing? Is it to buy, or is it rent to buy? And this is important because it will affect, for example, the type of rental contract that you can use in order to establish your residency. Just one point among many. The regional location. Do you already know where you wish to be. So are you a long-time visitor of, whoopsie daisy, sorry about that. Are you a long-time visitor of Portugal? And therefore, do you know that the region in which you wish to be based in, or do you still need time to explore? So regardless of whether or not you want to be in the country before the end of the year, is that in a sense almost a permanent move because you know where the destination is? Or really are you saying, well, I'm moving, but I still need the flexibility to be able to move around further once I'm there? That's an important factor. The tax implications, so fiscal residency and NHR, so non-habitual residency status. It's important that if you're also looking to acquire that status, you understand the implications and the needs associated with the NHR status itself, so the prerequisites, and also what it would mean to move, for example, in November, and how that relates to the total term of the NHR, which is 10 years. The need for amenities and services. So if you are a retiree, which I think a lot of people doing this will be, you need to understand what sort of support structure, infrastructure, amenities and services you need around you. And that may mean that the analysis process of your options will be conducted according to those criteria. Budget is absolutely key as well. It's no use looking in a certain area with aspirations of certain things if it is known that that budget that you have and have set aside is going to be insufficient. For example, that's something that companies and partners on the ground can very easily help you fine-tune, set a realism and a realistic target, especially if you have a limited time frame within which to act. The limitations on entry and exit, and here I will actually make a point which was raised by someone a few days ago, one of our potential clients, and they're coming over and they've continued to postpone their trip to Portugal. And we mentioned to them after the third postponement, we actually asked the person a question. We said, are you actually looking to move permanently or not? And he said, yes, I am, but I'm worried that I won't be able to get back into the UK without quarantining. And we said to him, well, but your new home is going to be the other country, in this case, Portugal. So you need to sort of adopt the reverse mentality where you see a trip to the UK as being a holiday almost, or if it's not a holiday, a visit, in which case your minimum stay would be 2 weeks because you'd quarantine. Now, if you're with family, you'd have to quarantine with the family. So there may be some limitations, but you need to think about your new country and your new home, not your old one. And he rethought that process because he'd been thinking about this liberty of being able to get back at any moment, but had completely forgotten the fact that he was actually looking to move. So I think this is very important. The fact that in the UK we have a two-week quarantine is extremely important to understand that quarantine may be irrelevant if you're actually moving permanently, because the requirement will be that you need to actually be permanently or semi-permanently in the new country. Then the healthcare aspect, clearly you have the ability to get access to our healthcare, and this will be a key aspect of moving before December, because under EU rules, you'll be able to get your A1 from Newcastle, for example, and then take that across to Portugal or another country, and that will allow you to get access to the healthcare. So that's something that's a lot easier done pre 31st of December than not. And then you have a number of local administrative tasks: getting your fiscal number, opening bank accounts, registering locally, making with your local parish, and so on. Now, the key message in this presentation is try to deal with as much as possible at a distance. Okay. And we should also emphasize two things. The first is that anyone with EU citizenship can continue to move freely to the EU. So if you are a UK citizen, so you have a UK passport, but you also have, for example, a French passport, just to use an example, this pressure is not on you. You can go on the 21st of January without any problem as an EU citizen under as a French citizen and still move to Portugal or anywhere else in the EU. Okay, so there is no pressure on you. And the second thing is that if for whatever reason you just cannot take a step or action before the 31st of December, there will be some post-Brexit solutions such as the D7 and the golden visa, although I should caveat that as well by saying there is renewed talk about changes to the golden visa, right? Then you will see that in the presentation that we sent out, not presentation, but the invitation that we sent out, we have emphasized this question of the rental very strongly. Now, our business, for example, works with a whole range of services and whatever, and we really don't mind whether people rent or buy. But at the moment, we think for people that are looking to move in a period of 2 months, it is highly risky to consider a purchase, if nothing else, from the fact that the conveyancing process of the purchase of a home, if you do a survey or if you do anything else, is likely to be longer than 2 months. So it is too risky a strategy for people who are initiating a process to seriously consider a property. It will be a rushed, to buy. It will be a rushed decision, and realistically, we encourage people to take their time to make the decision. So what you should be doing, we encourage people to do, is to considering how and if a rental is an appropriate solution for you. So please ask yourself the right question. For example, if you're not sure whether Portugal is right for you, you may actually reside in a country for a year and decide it isn't right for you and you move your residency back to the UK, for example. Then you want to rent first, or you might rent with an anticipation of buying, but the rental is an important component of that solution. If it's your final move or you love the destination, then clearly you know this is where I want to be. For example, I want to buy, but maybe I don't have the time, I'm going to rent before I buy. Again, the rental is a timing aspect because you may not be able to find a house in time, but you know what your ultimate objective is. So go down the list, and we will make available this presentation, but go down the list and see if any of those questions apply to you or those situations apply to you, and then work out whether rental is a good solution or a rent to buy. Please note that while the ultimate objective may be a buy, in other words, a cross in the middle column, for the purposes of this presentation, we are not encouraging buy, because we believe that one way or another, if you have not started the conveyancing process of purchasing a property, 2 months in the current circumstances with Christmas and COVID and everything else is too risky to ensure that you will get a purchase deed in your name, in the requisite time. Okay, so it's important to consider and to be practical that if your main objective is residence, there are other options of getting there without having to run the stress and the risk of failing, on a property purchase, in time. Okay. And without wanting to plug things too much, but one of the things that you can do is have a look at sites, for example, in terms of rental, and get a sense of what is available, the pricing, locations, and so on. Again, you'll have the presentation, but sites like, we run a site called Algarve Long Lets, for example, which is a portfolio of around 180 properties in the Algarve for long lets, winter lets, annual lets, and so on. Have a look at sites like that just to get a sense of the sort of thing that's available. On our other site, which is our sort of retirement site, you can then have a look as well at the advantages and disadvantages of renting versus buying. So we've got a sort of 20-question Q&A on that, and that's useful. Now, obviously, if we're talking so much about rentals, then what we need to also try to explain is what is happening to the rental market in Portugal at the moment. And the truth is, this is based on the second quarter and the third quarter. They're actually the other way round. It's third quarter is in the top left, and the second quarter is in the bottom right. The general message is that rents are under pressure in large cities. So what has happened is that large cities typically have a resident population that move, obviously, as they move jobs or the whatever. But in current circumstances, because the labor market is tighter, people are nervous, there isn't as much as that moving around. So the demand has perhaps fallen somewhat. Foreign people haven't been able to travel to Portugal. So the foreign demand has perhaps fallen. Whoopsie, this keeps sorry about that. Foreign demand has maybe fallen from certain markets and sectors, and so that's meant that there's slightly higher supply in the larger cities, which means that rents have adjusted downwards. It varies, but in Porto, I would say 10 to 15%, although I can't see what the statistics here are that. Lisbon, they say around 11-12% in the third quarter of 2020. They say that Porto has gone up slightly, so that's a recovery from the previous quarter, where it was down by about 3%. So you can see slight tendency. The only region that hasn't actually fallen appears to be of the three big regions, the Algarve, Lisbon, and Porto, appears to be the Algarve. So if you take the national as including the Algarve, so regions outside the big cities have not been as affected by this impact. So the message there is, whereas there may be some negotiation on rents, for example, in the large cities, it's not a generalized trend that people will be negotiating rents, especially for longer term rents. Now, I wanted to give you, and of course, with any number, for every rule, there are 1,000 exceptions almost. So please take this as a starting point. But I wanted to give you a sense of what your money gets you across the country. And I've just sort of broken it down into probably the 6 regions where most expats tend to want to reside or to look for properties, in no particular order, but geographic from north to south. North, or the Porto region, you can buy for around $250,000 upwards. Sorry, this is based on a 2-bedroom apartment purchase or rental. I've tried to compare both. And in Porto, you can get a 2-bed rental from around €700 a month upwards. That's why I put a plus after everything. The Silver Coast is an interesting market because the traditional stock is actually pretty cheap. You can buy a traditional sort of older 2-bedroom property for around 75,000 going north. But if you buy a modern property, new build, that will probably be in the region of 220,000 upwards. The rental is around 750, again upwards. There are some cheaper rentals, in larger towns, Caldas de Rainha, a couple of those. But this is a good guideline. Cascais ou Estoril, which is, I'm sure you probably all know, but is west of Lisbon, 350,000 is a realistic entry level for a 2-bedroom. When I say 2-bed, I mean 2-bedroom. And 1,350 per month upwards for a rental. On the Linha, which is the area between Cascais, Estoril, and Lisbon, 225. So you'll see lower than Lisbon, lower than Cascais, and 900. So it kind of takes a dip in the middle there. And of course, there are some places that are more expensive. Carcavelos near the international school might be very expensive, but as a general rule, it is cheaper than being in Lisbon or in Cascais. Then Lisbon itself, 300k upwards for a 2-bed, and 1,500 upwards for the same 2-bed in terms of a rental. In the Algarve, realistically, 175k upwards for a 2-bedroom and 900 upwards for a 2-bedroom. Now, 2 points that I would make about this. Firstly, is this is hugely availability dependent. For example, at the moment, we found that because there was a lot of pent-up demand after the first wave of COVID, a lot of the winter stock has been booked. I think we maybe have. I look at our portfolio. We maybe have half dozen villas across the Algarve, of a portfolio of maybe 40 or 50 villas that are actually available in the winter. And that's been because people have realized that there's demand. It's not just from retiring people. There are families coming out with children at the international schools, for example. So they all compete for the same pool of available inventory. And the second thing is that whether it be in the country or within the same region, please do not ask for a premium location and expect sort of an inland price. We often get this. People say, I want a 3-bed villa with a pool, with a sea view, and I have €1,000, a month for a long-term rent, and I want an official contract, and they rattle off all this list of criteria. And the truth of the matter is, if there's someone else who paid 2,000, I'm just using some example, why would anyone rent to someone who has 1,000 budget? So it's much better to be very realistic about a budget, and what areas or what sort of product can be rented and achieved with a certain budget, rather than being totally frustrated, trawling through social media, hundreds of Facebook groups, mailing everybody, visiting tens of things, and then it's very, very frustrating, especially if you have a family. This can be a stressful process. So we often, and I do this personally, I've lived in 10 countries and moved around a lot. I often say to people, a rental is not a permanent solution. Try and get as close as you can, and then take it and use that as, buy yourself time to take a final decision. Don't put yourself under pressure. I decided to talk a little bit about the Algarve. This is not an Algarve pitch. Quite the contrary. I wish that Portugal could encourage people to move sort of everywhere, but there is a distinct pattern, and especially from the UK, without a shadow of a doubt, the Algarve is the #1 destination for UK expats looking to move to Portugal, probably followed by Lisbon and the Silver Coast, and less so Porto. That's a bit different for other markets. Porto may actually trump the Silver Coast. But as far as the UK is concerned, the Algarve is by far the most popular. I won't go into all of the details and the points. You can afterwards access the presentation and read that for yourself. What I would say is that the Algarve does offer a very, very good balance between a sort of sufficient access to other expats and expat communities and whatever, without having totally lost its Portuguese roots. The prices of real estate, although they've gone up, and I'm talking both buying and rental, although they've gone up, the value for money aspect is probably still as good a balance as you will find given the location. It's one of the top locations, tourism locations in the world. So you're expecting to pay a premium, but nonetheless, it's still, it's still accessible, shall we say, in terms of what is on offer. And so it's a good balance. A couple of considerations around rentals. Firstly, and these are key points for you to bear in mind, availability. Winter contracts of up to 6 months versus an annual let. So please be aware that the pricing will be different between a winter contract, which is low season, and a full year contract, which also covers the summer season. And a couple of hints as to what not to do. Do not take a winter let and then expect to extend the same let in the summer, A, at the same price, or B, at all. Because by that stage, the owner will be thinking of maybe doing some summer lets by the week at a very high value. So if you negotiate a 6-month let, expect no extensions and expect to do something else. For example, to buy. I would not encourage anyone to take a 6-month let ending in May or June and then expecting to find a new let of whatever nature. It'll be very, it'll be very expensive or impossible to find. So renter beware. Pricing, it is seasonal, and the owners pay different taxes. It's something that people don't often understand. It is more expensive for an owner to let to you long term than it is short term. They pay roughly between 12 and 18% more tax on their income for a long-term let than a short-term let. So please bear this in mind when proposals are made. Taking the decision at a distance and the risks involved, both for you as a tenant and for the landlord, that's something you need to be aware of and you need to discuss. The seasonality and associated summer risks, which I've talked about. Then understanding the regional differences is key. If you're thinking of coming over with furniture, then don't expect to find many unfurnished properties in a tourist region, because how would those people rent out to tourists, if there was no furniture in there? So be aware of these nuances. Even if you bring your furniture later, you may have to opt for a furnished rental versus an unfurnished, or vice versa in a big city. Think of supply and demand, and that will be, can be talked about with a knowledgeable partner as and when you decide on the region. I've talked a little bit about the types of contracts. Okay, there is a bit of a conflict between what the tax law says and what the rental contract law says in Portugal. So that needs to be worked through with not only someone who's helping you either with the rental, but also possibly with a lawyer, the lawyer that's also helping you to get the residency, if that's the route that you take. And then there are some exceptions to certain rental contracts, the arrendamento, and those have a link to whether or not your intention is to buy, for example. So it's the reason why it's very important to declare your intentions to your partner so they can help you through that. And then I just wanted to re-emphasize or emphasize again that there are options in post-Brexit for residency. And I have put down some key points there, but I've kind of over-talked my time, so I won't go through those in detail. But the takeaway message on that particular slide is your options are not cut off suddenly when the 31st of December appears or passes. There are many, many nations that are outside the EU whose citizens still move into the EU at the moment. So the UK will be one additional such nation. Just briefly, I'll let that linger for a few minutes. So those are some of these sites that we run and that give you information and background. Feel free to access any of those for additional information. And now, if I may, I would like to invite, excuse me, I would like to invite Enrique Freitas to present a little bit on one of the key elements, which is actually everyone will need, which is to open a bank account in Portugal, and Enrique will go through that.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, all. Welcome to this webinar, which I hope will be enlightening and the first of many. So my name is Enrique. I'm the head of Millennium BCP rep office here in the UK. I don't know if you heard of Millennium BCP before, but Millennium BCP is the largest private owned bank in Portugal. We have around 700 branches in Portugal, so you will find a branch in every corner, and several international operations, and we serve about 6 million clients worldwide. Luis, if you could just next one, please. Yeah, this is the team of the London office. So in the UK, although we're based in London, we have promoters all over the country. This is our team. Next one, please. Yes, okay. We have promoters all over the country, as you can see in this presentation, including Jersey, Wales, North Ireland. I highlight the North Ireland, where our promoter is the honorary consul of Portugal, Mr. Daniel Gouveia, and we are very proud to have the consul as our promoter. And these promoters, although not employees of the bank, they are legitimized to carry out some tasks, particularly with regard to account openings, and essentially link clients or potential clients with the London office. But let's turn to more concrete issues and basically answer the essential question of what and how we can help you. We have exactly 3 pillars of essential services. So we can open accounts from the UK prior to your move to Portugal. So you don't need to be in Portugal to open the account. You can do it through our services, through our office, our team. And once you are in Portugal, you will be ready to go. The account will be active. You will have the debit cards, the online access, is everything set up before you go. Our website and our apps are in English. It's easier for everyone. We can also do mortgages and personal loans intermediation. We also have free transfers to Portugal. We have a scheme that we provide to our clients, which allows you to make transfers from your personal account in UK to this account in Millennium BCP, and it's free from charges and completely safe because it's done by through the bank. You will be transferring from your personal account to the Millennium BCP account here in UK, and we do the transfer on your behalf to your account in Portugal. So we are in lockdown at this moment, as you know, and in this unprecedented context, we've created a contingency plan for account opening, which I will be able to explain in more detail to anyone interested. But in a few words, so you can send us the documents we need to open the account by email. We prepare all the process, we fill up the forms, we send it back by email. You print the forms, we will schedule a video call with yourselves to verify your identities, to assist you with the signatures, and then you just need to send the original forms, not the documents, the original forms that you signed, and we will open the account for you. After that, you will receive the codes which allows you to make the registration in our website, and you will receive the pins for your debit cards, which will be sent to your home address here in UK. So we are prepared to serve all our clients and potential clients and help you with your move to Portugal. So once you're there, you might be different needs and concerns, but the bank will be sorted out before you go. We can also, because this is a usual question that people ask us about the NIFs, we can provide you a NIF, a non-resident NIF, and this will work only for bank account purposes. So you won't have to apply for a NIF before you open the bank account. We can do that for you. But once you're there, once you're in Portugal, and once you decide to purchase, for instance, a property, you will need to cancel that NIF that we provided you and ask for a permanent one. But I think in this case, also Luis will help you because they have the service for this. And I think this is the main image that I can leave you with from ourselves, from Millennium BCP here. We're here for the last 20 years, and we expect to stay and to remain here even after Brexit. We have all the licenses, all the paperwork done. So our project is to stay and keep the service that we provide and keep helping the clients and potential clients. It's one less concern that you might have if you decide to move to our country.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being so succinct. Let me just now stop sharing the screen. So stop sharing. You're all looking at yourselves. Okay. So thanks very much again, Enrique. I think a comment that I would make about that is I was obviously we deal with our business deals with clients from around 27 or so countries at last count, and to be fair, bank account opening is one of the sort of, it's not a complex thing, but it's one of the more bureaucratic things. So yep. I was very pleased when Enrique actually mentioned this possibility when we spoke actually a few weeks ago, coincidentally, about this, because I think it is one of the things that people worry a lot about, is arriving in a country and then missing or having a missing document, and then the whole process stopping because they're missing, you know, a valid document, or the date is, you know, too old, or something that they've missed genuinely, and then they're in a panic about doing it. So if you're able to do a task like that at a distance in advance, I think is a huge benefit, because like everything else, not only does it save time, but it reduces the stress of the move, you know, and this is a key thing we always emphasize, especially in the context of this webinar. We're talking about taking action very quickly for most people. So if there's a driver behind it. The last thing you want is for the whole process to become stressful because you one of the documents you're presenting for opening a bank account in Portugal, for example, happens to be too old and you don't have access to an updated document. You have to call your son or daughter to get a copy and send it over. I mean, it's just a mess. So I think the fact that the Millennium has set up a remote-based way of doing that, I find this the sort of practical things that in this case a bank can do to help people with the process. So again, Enric, thank you for the presentation, and also well done to Millennium to doing that, because I'm not aware of many other banks, if any, actually that actually have a similar thing. So I think now we'll take maybe 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A or less.